Good afternoon, everybody. Back with another election prediction today. I'm going to be predicting a hypothetical 2028 election scenario between Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, former President Joe Biden's son, and the incumbent Vice President J.D. Vance. A lot of people probably clicked on this video and are like, what are you talking about? Hunter Biden as the Democrat nominee for president? That's a bit of a stretch. Obviously, I certainly acknowledge it is a bit of a stretch. There's a bunch of other Democrat candidates who, at this point in time, seem to have a better chance of being the nominee. Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, AOC, some other governors, Josh Shapiro, etc. But I do think Hunter Biden is actually a viable contender to be the Democrat nominee and actually to become president. A lot of people laughed at Donald Trump when he ran in 2015, and they were like, this guy could never become president of the United States. I would say throw your suspension of disbelief out the window. Anything is possible in the 21st century American politics. Trump was just reelected to a second non consecutive term as president. Joe Biden, after going through a bunch of scrutiny for his mental acuity, Trump won it in 2016. Even Kamala Harris as a candidate. I think, if you went back to, you know, even 2012, she would be considered somewhat of a difficult candidate to imagine as the Democrats promoting. So I don't think that Hunter Biden is somebody that's out of the question. He's recently done a series of interviews. I have watched a few of them. I actually think that he has some good charisma and seems to be relatively sharp and in many ways carries the political tone of his father, although Joe Biden no longer, in my opinion, what he once was as a politician. Hunter Biden definitely could be somebody to carry that Biden torch. We've seen family dynasties in politics before with the Bushes, with the Clintons, with in statewide, with the Cuomos, with a whole bunch of people, the Sununos, etc. So Hunter Biden as a nominee, somebody not out of the question, in my opinion. With all of that context being said, let's get into this election prediction. Hunter Biden, of course, comes with all of the baggage that has been thrown against him, but in many ways, it's an advantage for him because the Republicans and President Trump have thrown so much at the Bidens and at Joe Biden, and specifically, calling out Hunter Biden in 2020 and in 2024, and then he was pardoned December 1st, 2024. That's all out in the public eye. And, with him being the nominee, of course, it's going to come back into focus, but it doesn't mean that he is, that it's going to be even worse for him. It could definitely be beneficial because it's already out there. All of the baggage is out there. Same with Trump. He already had all of the baggage out there when he ran, even in 2016, but especially in 2020 and in 2024. So anyway, safe Hunter Biden states, it's going to be the usual, the West Coast states that typically go to Democrats, as well as Illinois. I think New York will be a safe Hunter Biden state. And, his nomination would certainly not come without scrutiny from people inside of his own party. Nonetheless, I still think he would ultimately shore up support as the election came due. Now let's get into our safe Vance states. It's going to be the usual states that you typically see Republicans winning now, leaving Texas out of the equation. But Florida, when you look at the trends there since 2016, what Trump has been able to do, what DeSantis has been able to do, it's become a solid red state, as well as Ohio and Iowa. Although I do think Hunter Biden does have somewhat of a Midwestern appeal. Joe Biden had that Midwestern appeal when he was running for vice president and for president. Didn't do too well in Ohio and Iowa in the election in 2020, but you know, I think Hunter Biden could do a little bit better in the Rust Belt than somebody like Kamala Harris ended up doing. But Vance at the advantage right now, 178. Some likely Biden states, this will be Maine's at large, New Jersey, New Hampshire. I think he'll do pretty well in the Northwest. Colorado will be likely for Hunter Biden. I don't think he'll do too well with the Hispanic community. Suburban women may have a problem with him. I think that actually favor Vance in this because of, Hunter Biden's past discretions. A lot of suburban women, and people say that's a big voting block, especially in states like Virginia or Nebraska second, that candidates need to appeal to. Um, I don't think it would bode well for Hunter. With J.D. Vance, some likely states, this would be the state of Texas. Um, Hunter Biden, he's really underestimated, and I'm not saying this because I like him in any but he definitely has the appeal of one of these Democrats, even like a Bill Clinton that can go on the stump and I think actually resonate with voters. Although he's had and he's had so much, controversy around him. But I don't think that takes away from the fact that I think he could actually go to these areas. And I'm saying, and I previously did say Hispanics wouldn't be too favorable toward him, but he could go to areas like Nevada and Arizona and really be much more personable than somebody like JD Vance. And I say that as somebody who isn't even a supporter of Hunter Biden's, but I definitely think I've watched those interviews. I see the attacks against Hunter Biden. I think he does have a political acuity. And I want to reiterate that, not because, but because I think that he would be a viable candidate in 2028 if he chose to run. Some lean Hunter Biden states. This would be New Mexico. This would be Virginia. I think that the state of Wisconsin would lean in favor of Hunter Biden. That'll be it. Some lean Vance states. This would be the state of North Carolina and the state of Nevada. That's going to be it for the lean Vance states. So Vance is still in a position where he is not the president elect yet, and maybe he won't be in this scenario. I think that Hunter Biden would tilt the state of Michigan in his favor, getting to 250. I think JD Vance would tilt the state of Arizona in his favor, 252, a nail biter election. Biden would end up tilting Nebraska second, very small margin there, 251 to 252. It doesn't get closer than this. Comes down to Georgia and Pennsylvania. I think JD Vance would tilt the state of Georgia in his favor. I think that not Joe Biden, Hunter Biden would defeat JD Vance in the presidential election 270 to 268. Usually the candidates that you expect to do the worst, and not always, but a lot of the candidates that are like, there's no way that guy has a chance at winning, end up actually performing much better than you would expect them to. At this point in time, I think that if Hunter Biden actually went up against JD Vance in a presidential election, I have him narrowly defeating him. I think that JD Vance is less personable than somebody like Hunter Biden. I think JD Vance would do very well in debate against Hunter Biden, but it comes down to being able to go on those podcasts. And I think Hunter Biden is somebody that could go on the Joe Rogan podcast and really make a case. And Vance, I think, has a tougher time with that. He's a very smart guy, but he does have a problem with charisma sometimes and being more personable to the at-large American voter. Therefore, a narrow victory for Hunter Biden in this election. Prediction. Please let me know in the comments below your thoughts on this prediction. What would you keep the same? What would you change? Do you think that Hunter Biden, if he chose to run in 2028, would have a chance at being the Democrat nominee? And with that being said, thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel and have a great day.